Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with a good friend, coach, mentor, author, speaker, all around good guy. And if I didn't know better, probably an expert pickleball player, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Oh boy, I don't know
Have you
what to
tried?
do with that introduction.
Have you tried pickleball yet?
Yes, I haven't played it in a while, but it's a very fun game. And
Yeah.
yeah, if a pastor or a leader is looking for something to just get their mind off of their job for
Right
an hour,
on.
pickleball is amazing.
Yeah. If you haven't played pickleball, if tennis, racquetball, and ping pong had a baby, that's pickleball. It is. It's another way to throw your back out and enjoy life all at the same time, and it's good for you. Good for you. So, what are we talking about today, John? Besides pickleball, what other issues are we going to deal with today?
Yeah, the title of today's pod is called "The Trap of Isolation."
Yeah.
Jim, we've talked about the need for pastors to build friendships.
Yes.
Last year in 2023, we know that about 45% of pastors were dealing with some level of burnout,
Yeah.
many of them at a serious stage of burnout. And the number one cause of burnout that's reported is the ongoing stress of the role. That's the number
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
probably we should talk about that at some point about how to unravel all of that. But today,
Yeah.
I'd like to us to think about the second leading cause, and that is isolation.
Hmm.
I'm troubled by the number of pastors who tell me or tell our coaches that they have no close friends.
Yeah.
Um, Barna suggested about 5 years, 6 years ago that that number was about 66% of pastors. And that kind of tracks, with
Mm. Yeah.
anecdotally with what we do and what
Yeah.
we know. I mean, all of us need people in our life who energize, refresh, make us laugh,
Yeah.
who we can have mask off community with. And for a pastor, there's some roadblocks, right? They get in the
Yeah.
way of that. I tell pastors who are struggling with friendship, we do this compassionately, but we say, look, the devil has a horrible plan for your life, and that's to isolate you and then take you out.
Yeah.
Um, that's his plan. And
Yeah.
so, when you look at the life of Paul, check out Romans 16. He has a whole list of people he lists as friends. He uses phrases like Epinetus, my dear friend, and Stachys, my dear friend. And,
Yeah.
Jesus had the 12 guys, and he said in
Yeah.
John 15, I call you friends.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think we've said this, I don't know, maybe 20 times in 5 years that God has hardwired every human being for friendship.
Yeah.
And the call of God on your life doesn't undo that hard wiring.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get to where God wants us to go if we choose to live in a relational desert. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I'd like to talk about today, Jim. Just give me some feedback right
Yeah.
away
I
on this.
mean, just break it down into the minute. Who wants to go to a movie alone? Who wants to go to a nice dinner alone? Who wants to go to a funeral alone? Like the
Mm,
best things and the worst things in our lives are always seasons for sharing with somebody close. I
yeah.
can't imagine being surrounded by people and not having a single friend in the crowd.
Hmm.
That is a loneliness. That's an isolation. I mean, we've determined in our penal system, right, that being alone is actually cruel and unusual as far as punishment goes. And
Yeah,
yet, this is a self-imposed isolation that we're talking about today because
that's right.
there are friendly people, and if we're one of them, we will have friends on some level. If you're going to eat, take somebody with you. You're going to grab some coffee, get some friends at the coffee shop you can talk to, things like that. But I do
Right.
understand pastors have special relational issues because the people they're around, they're the pastor of those people, and that does create a sense of unicornness. I think I just created that word, but if George
Yeah,
Bush can create strategy, I can create
there you go.
unicornness. We all know what we're talking about. So I think there are challenges for pastors, but a challenge is not an excuse for being isolated and alone. It's too
Yeah.
dangerous to even take that risk.
And you talk about the challenges. Here's the two biggest ones that we notice.
Yeah.
There's probably others, but these are the top two that we hear all the
Yeah.
time. The first one is fear.
Hmm.
Fear is a real obstacle for pastors sometimes. Maybe
Yeah.
you've had a negative friendship experience as a leader. Somebody turned on you, somebody wrote a nasty, untrue letter about you or email about you, stabbed you in
Yeah.
the back, so to speak.
Sure.
And if you've gone through that kind of relational pain, first of all, I'm sorry
Right.
that that
Right.
happened to you. And I totally get why you would be hesitant to venture out again
Yeah.
into friendship making territory. But the truth still is it's not
Right.
good for the man or
Yeah.
the woman to
Yeah.
be alone.
Yeah.
Um, Again, you won't get to where God wants you to go without life-giving, replenishing relationships.
Yeah.
So fear is maybe that's the biggest obstacle
Yeah.
in friendship. What do you think about that first obstacle,
Yeah. I
Tim?
mean, God designed our brains to not get bitten by the same dog twice. Right. I
Right.
mean, there's a category where we react instinctually, reflexually, in a way so we don't get hurt. And emotionally, I get it. I had a friend and he hurt me.
Mhm.
My wife and I had a great, dear friendship. And then, they left the church and took half the couples with them. I get that. But like
Yeah.
you're saying, I've also been to a restaurant where I got really bad service, but it didn't stop me from eating again the next day. There's a necessity to nutrition that
Right.
makes me have to go back and cook my own food or go to a restaurant again. But I can't stop eating because I got a bad meal once, and you can't stop loving people and letting people love you because you've been hurt. I get it. Our dog
Yeah.
passed away about a year and a half ago. I was just talking last night to my wife saying, "You want to get another dog?" And she said, "I just couldn't go through that again." And that means you run. Love creates the risk of loss. There's no way around it. There's
Right.
nothing you can do about it. But to not but to mourn my dog's death her entire life and not get close to her doesn't make any sense at all. She's a dog. Love her,
Yeah.
hopefully outlive her, but that's the cost of loving something. So loving people, sure, it's a risk, but there's only one greater risk I can think of, and that's not loving people. You,
Agreed.
that destruction is assured. You're isolated. You're
Mm.
you're exactly what a lion looks for when it's out hunting. So we
Yeah.
really don't. We don't. I don't want to. I'm afraid. Give me a break. There's no season off. I'll just take 2 years without friends.
Mm.
You're loading the gun for the
Yeah.
enemy. Don't do that.
If COVID taught us anything, it taught us the I don't know, the fruit of isolation.
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
problems with anxiety and depression went
yeah,
off the charts.
yeah,
And I knew it would happen because
yeah,
I know what happens when people are in isolation.
yeah.
Um,
Right.
uh, you know, I'm not talking about alone times with God. You need those. Sometimes you need time alone.
Sure.
We all need a vacation to get away,
Yeah,
things like that. I
yeah,
get, but you cannot live your life detached. I mean, think about this for a minute. You're in a relational calling.
yeah.
You're not
Right.
coding.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
You're not coding. You're not. No, you are. It's
Yeah,
it's it's inherent in your calling. So I
yeah.
understand. I think almost every pastor I know has at least one story, many of them multiple stories where they've been wounded by sheep, by people. And
Sure.
and so I'm not diminishing that in any way, shape, or form. All I'm saying is please don't allow that to put you in relational neutral
Yeah,
for the rest of your life, because again, I don't think that will bring forth the best version of you.
yeah,
So fear's one. Here's another one obstacle, and that is busyness. So those are the two, fear and busyness, and
yeah,
maybe they're interrelated.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. One is the result of the other.
Yeah. If I'm so
Yeah,
busy that I don't have time, that's my excuse, right?
yeah.
Uh, Now, I'm not saying that all pastors are thinking like that, but I do think sometimes subconsciously we think that
Sure.
that's how it works. So when I observe pastors that are running all the time at 120 miles an hour with their hair on fire, I'm concerned on several levels when I see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, First, that workaholic habit is hard to break.
Yeah.
So 20 something leader, 30 something leader, let me give you an old guy perspective.
Yeah.
If you think that I'm going to work 70 to 80 hours a week in my 20s and then into my early 30s, and then somehow I'm going to magically flip a switch and I'll get more responsible with my life. I mean, it's like coming off crack
Yeah.
cocaine.
Yeah.
And so that's a hard habit to break. Secondly, a second level of concern for me is where is the time and space needed for relationships?
Right.
For
Right.
your marriage,
Right.
with your kids and with some friends. And I know some overly busy pastors who, when presented with this idea of carving out time for friendship, I mean, they have anxiety about it, Jim.
Yeah.
And yet friendship is exactly the antidote for their anxiety.
Right.
And so I think this
Yeah.
busyness piece, real quick, I'd love to hear your thought on this second obstacle.
Yeah. I know I'm smiling because I have friends that literally like the last thing they want to do is hang out. And as soon as we do, they're like, that's the best thing I've done for myself in a long time. Like, well, we could do this on a regular basis. Oh yeah, call me sometime. But they resist. I'm too busy. Hey, maybe next month. Like the only thing normal in any of our lives is the setting on our dryer that says normal, right? Everything else
Mm.
is this outrageous, ongoing kerfluffle of reality. But again, making time for things that are most important, and working 70 hours a week without friends is it's a
Yeah.
kamikaze pilot saying I'm a successful pilot. You are, but you're running it. Your success is your demise.
Yeah.
That thought again that I can suddenly turn this off when I'm 50. Well, you can't. But the other thing is, what will be left of your life if
There you
you've been
go.
working that many hours, giving your soul to that many things? I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, but I can
Yeah.
guess. And that's a neglected marriage. That's a neglected family. That's a
Right.
neglected community. Are you successful, or have you sold your soul for something that really is vaporous?
That's
Even
right.
in the church, it's vaporous.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I were
So,
talking the other day. There was somebody that I was telling you about that had this huge church. It just exploded, and we're
yeah, I
building this,
remember
and
that
$20 million,
conversation.
$30 million. And I just like, I couldn't help as an older guy to go, oh, you poor guy.
Yeah.
I was when I was younger, I used to envy guys like that. And I was like, man, you better keep everything in order because I know what happens to guys like you if you don't.
That's right.
Be
Yeah, I
careful.
remember that conversation. And
Yeah.
and this was I don't know this pastor. It was relayed to me
Yeah.
by a colleague, and they
Yeah.
said they attend this church, and the church is a couple of years old. It's 1,000 people already.
Yeah.
Everybody on staff's in their mid-20s, and I'm just thinking, oh my word, there
Right.
is so much that could go right there, but there is so much that could go
Yeah.
wrong
And
there.
this
And
is the
and so
difference between the going right or going wrong. It's not.
I think so.
Yeah. Having good people in your life. Iron sharpens iron. Without that iron, soap doesn't sharpen iron, and wood doesn't sharpen iron,
Yeah,
and hay doesn't sharpen iron. Iron has to sharpen iron. You need good friends, and you need them desperately if you don't have them. Sorry, John. We got
yeah.
to keep moving. I know, but man,
Yeah.
so
Well,
important.
I know we got to get moving, but I
Yeah.
got to say this.
Yeah.
Um, I have to say this. I was at a church just, a couple days ago preaching, and
Yeah.
I'm sharing my story. And I've shared my story on this podcast before and
Yeah.
been sharing my story a lot. We've been speaking a lot in the last couple of months. Um, and when I talk about my recovery, said, yeah, I went to my doctor. I went to my counselor.
Yeah.
I started making some changes in the way I worked um, and how I took care of my body and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I said, but if it wasn't for my wife
Yeah.
and three couples that my wife put around me
Mm.
while I was recovering, I would not be here today.
Right.
That's how important friendship is. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the
Right.
lifeline to me at the
Mm.
worst season of my life. It was the people around
Mm.
me. Yeah, God was there and I know he was helping, but he was working through those people to bring somebody who was totally broken
Yeah.
back to wellness. So
Yeah.
that's how
Love it.
critical this is.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for it. There's,
Right.
there's, there's, you if you want to flourish, if you want to lead well, this is required. You can't skip this.
Yeah.
So with that in mind,
Yeah.
here's 7, and we're going to go really fast here
Yeah.
now. Here's 7 friendship tips for leaders. Number 1,
Okay.
tip 1, go first.
Hmm.
I want God to just drop amazing people in my lap sometimes.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
and that's happened a few times.
Sure.
But a better strategy is to take the first step.
Yeah.
Friendship building starts with intentionality on your part. So don't
Yeah.
wait for that family member to call you. Don't wait for that person that you're friends with that maybe isn't in your region to call you. Take the first step, take the initiative. Second tip is to be reciprocal.
Hmm.
Adult relationships that aren't reciprocal aren't healthy.
Right.
In a healthy friendship, sometimes you're doing the encouraging, you're doing the listening, and other times you're receiving the encouragement and you're being
Yeah.
listened to.
Yeah.
One-sided relationships do not last very long.
Yeah.
So that's the second one. And you can stop me anytime and just
Well,
jump
I
in.
just had one thought about that. The
Yeah.
coaching clients, they're strangers. They come with a need. I listen. I talk. But as coaching clients become friends, it's funny. I just the other day, it happened twice in the same week from different clients who are. I'm still their coach, but we've become good friends. Hey, before I talk, how are you doing, Jim? They literally are
Isn't that
starting twice in
amazing?
1 week. How are you doing? I thought, well, I don't know, but let's talk about it. Like I noticed that, like I think that's the sign for me. Our relationship is no longer solely professional. It's
Mhm.
now personal,
Yeah.
and I know I can call them. They know they can call me. That's
Yeah.
neat.
And I think that, I think that there are some folks who would take a dim view of that, in our profession even, that
Yeah,
it always has to be professional. But you know
yeah,
what? I can't help it if people become my friends in this
right.
process.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
help that. And that's been my
yeah,
experience as well. So, yeah, be reciprocal. Thirdly, be
yeah,
kind. I mean, I shouldn't have to
yeah,
say that to pastors.
right.
Be kind. Kindness is relational currency.
Yeah,
We live in an increasingly unkind world.
yes, we do.
And I think kindness has this magnetic quality to it. I'm
Yeah,
attracted to people who are kind.
yes,
Be kind. Number 4, become a better listener. We talked about this in the last podcast, how pastors
yeah,
sometimes struggle
yeah,
with
yeah,
listening. But just the way you posture yourself, eye contact, body language, reflective listening, all of that
right.
communicates that, hey, I'm actually really interested in you.
Yeah,
And I think Jesus did that so well
yes,
that when
yeah,
he was talking to somebody, I believe that was the only person in the room to them, and all the other stuff going around. I think he had this
yeah,
ability to shut it all out. And in that
yep,
moment, I've met some people like that in my life. And I'll tell you what that did for me, the value that communicated to me. I think we all know Nikki Cruz. We've heard
yeah,
that name.
yeah,
Nikki came up to the church in Saginaw when we were youth pastors there a couple of times. And I got to meet this guy. He was one of the people that I felt did that well. Like he made me
huh,
feel like I was the only person in the room.
yeah,
And why would Nikki Cruz be interested in some 24, 25-year-old kid? But there was just that amazing
yeah,
ability to listen, and it communicated such care.
yeah,
So that's a tip 4. Tip 5, be safe. And by that I mean be a safe person to talk
right.
to,
Yeah,
maintain confidentiality, be
yeah,
reliable, be dependable.
yeah,
If you want a potential friend to trust you, well, give them a reason to.
right, right.
Yeah, I got 2 more here, Jim.
Yeah.
Tip 6, don't overshare. And this is tricky, right?
Yeah.
Don't overshare, but don't undershare
Yeah.
either. I think what has happened to me in the past is I've done both. Like I've been too
Yeah.
quick to share and it kind of burned me. And because of
Mm.
that, I've withdrawn some, and I've been too slow, I've to open up and share
Yeah.
because of that bad experience. But I think what happens, sometimes we open up too fast, sometimes we never open up, and both extremes really aren't healthy.
Right.
This sixth tip is about becoming wisely transparent. What do you think
Hmm.
about that sixth one, Jim? What are your
I
thoughts
like
on that?
I like the way you said it there, that wisely transparent. I think that's a good way to say it. We're not hiding things, but some things aren't a first date conversation.
That's
Some
right.
of they're reserved for marriage. And I think the same thing's true in our friendships. So how you doing? Well, when I was four, my mother, I like what? I don't need to know that, but how you doing? To be honest with you, I'm not having a very good day. Oh, really? What's going on? I've been dealing with some things, and well, you want to talk about it? Yeah, not really. Maybe later, but right now I just want to focus on enjoying this cup of coffee and a friend. How are you doing? I mean, that's okay, right? Or to say,
Yeah, I
well,
think so.
yeah, but to say I got my feelings hurt because when I was 12, I was bitten by a dog, and then my third grade teacher, right? I enjoy friendship because it's like playing catch. You throw a regular sized ball, they catch it, they throw it back. That's kind of
Yeah,
conversation. But if I throw a bowling ball at the person, that's kind of the end of the game. I just leveled them, and I
right.
don't know that that's good for anybody. But in
Especially
time,
early in the
yes,
relationship, right?
yeah,
As,
right,
as things grow, I mean, Jim, you and I have known each other for maybe 6 years now, 7 years, something like
yeah,
that,
I don't
maybe
know,
8 years.
yeah,
I've lost count.
yeah. We went to high
Um,
school together, whatever that was, right? 8 years ago. Yeah,
yeah, but I know the first several conversations we had together, we were
mhm.
not lobbing bowling balls at each other,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now I think we can.
Yeah, it's
I
trust
know.
is earned, right? Slowly
Yep,
over a series of trustworthy events, trust is earned, and
that's right.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that I know I can come to you with anything now,
Yeah, same here, and
and I don't
have.
have to pretend. I can,
Yeah,
and it's just, listen, Pastor, that kind of relationship, those kinds of relationships are available to you somewhere,
yes, yeah,
and you desperately need them.
yeah, yeah,
Desperately need them. My heart goes out to a pastor who's wrestling with the normal church stuff that all pastors wrestle with, but has nowhere to go
yeah,
to talk and unpack that. And so I want to encourage you to
yeah,
not allow yourself to let fear, let busyness, or whatever else it might be keep you from it. And let me give you one
yeah,
more, and
yeah,
that's be available. Tip seven: friendship never happens accidentally. It's
yeah,
always the result of purposeful planning and action.
yeah.
In order to do that, you're going to have to get some margin in your life.
Yes, yeah.
Get
Good
some
point.
margin in your life. Uh, Margin, I think it was Richard Swenson that defined margin this way. It's the difference between your load and your limits.
Yeah,
And
it's
um,
good.
and so getting some space. We're not going to become fully mature, in my mind, without investing heavily in friendship.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
your calling, your anointing, your gifting doesn't immunize you from the deep need for honest, meaningful, and replenishing relationships. And here's what I've noticed, Jim, that the larger the organization gets, the higher up you're elevated in ministry, the harder this gets.
yeah,
The fewer people you have around you who interact with you on this level.
yeah,
And it's sad. It's
yeah,
sad to me because I think when we get to the end of our life, Jim, our we're not going to be measured by the size of the church we lead or the business we run. We're going to be measured in large part by the friendships we've nurtured.
yes,
And we're not going to be
yeah,
remembered for our accomplishments. We're going to be remembered for the relational value we've deposited
yeah.
in
Huge.
people.
Yeah,
So final
huge.
thoughts on that, Jim, and just wrap us
Yeah,
up.
I just this last week I did a funeral for a wonderful lady, 71 years old, was just baptized last April, a recent convert to Christ. And at her funeral, I really got to know her, if that makes sense, as her
Yeah.
friends and family members talked. And she had played on the same girls softball team for 47 years. They started playing softball 47 years earlier.
That's got
And
to be a
and we
record.
when they went to like wherever the captain of the team moved to Florida, so they played a Florida tournament, like 10-day tournament down there or whatever, and they called themselves the Flamingos, and they had pink uniforms, and there was so much wonderful, consistent, lifelong. It was really amazing, you know.
Yeah.
I say I got to know her. That a lot of the pictures they show on the slideshow was of her pre-conversion, and I made the joke as I was kind of welcoming everybody to the funeral. I said I looked up and I saw a picture of me and her husband baptizing her last April, and then the rest of the pictures caused me to wonder what the chronological order was. You know what I mean? Was she baptized before all these things or after these things? I said if I'd have known, I might have held her under the water just a little bit longer, you know. And everybody started laughing. But it was just the room was so relaxed. There was so much love. They call themselves the Flamingos. Her pallbearers were the husbands of the flamingos that they call the buzzards. And there was 1,000 inside jokes. There was Motown music and memories and favorite
Yeah.
recipes. And just so even though her faith was new, the depth of relationship she had was lifelong. And she did not waste her life, even though most of
Yeah.
it was not even lived for Jesus. She lived so much of it in community and in deep relationship. I just thought that's wonderful. So I guess that's my final thought for this is that we would be known for relationships that last longer than the position we're in, the project we're working on, the need
Yeah.
for others' hands or monies or or hours. So yeah, God bless you, our dear watchers and listeners, because you're an important part of a softball team that hasn't been started yet, and you should
Yeah.
start it. A dinner club that hasn't been started yet, but somebody needs to start it. A running group, a book club, the Inklings. Those who got together, Tolkien and all the other great writers. That sat in that pub and wrote and then read to each other what they'd written. Just a lifelong friendship is such a great gift. And you say, I don't have any lifelong friendships. I moved too much. I'm too isolated. When I got saved, I lost all my friends, whatever it is. I get that. But there's two great times to plant a great oak tree. And that's one is 50 years ago. But if you didn't plant it, then the second great time is today, as soon as
Yeah.
possible. So I like what John said, like you take the initiative. You be kind. The Bible says if you want to have friends, show yourself to be friendly. You'll
Yeah.
become attractant to those things. So if it doesn't exist, maybe you should create it because you need it. We all do. So God
Yeah.
bless you as you continue to think about this and hopefully in a haunting way until you do it. Because who will speak at your funeral? And what will they
Yeah.
say? Hopefully there's decades of memories of good times and inside jokes and music and songs and nicknames and all that stuff, because that's the richness of this life in many ways. It's to love God, to love people, find out who you're supposed to be and be that. That's love
Yeah.
God, love people, love to serve. That's your GPS, God, people, and serving. So
Mhm.
without people, you're missing something. So go find them. Go say yes to the invitation that's been extended to you, but continue to serve the Lord in community. And that is part of the alignment. So God bless you as you continue to lead from alignment.